My wife walked into our apartment one evening and sat me down for the talk. She was glowing, almost proud. She told me she'd been sleeping with my brother for the past 8 months. She said our marriage was dead. She said she wanted out. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I poured myself a drink, looked her in the eyes, and whispered, "Congrats. You just admitted to fraud, embezzlement, and destroying your entire career. And I have every second of it recorded." She didn't know I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her auditor. My name is Rowan Hale. For 15 years, I've been a forensic auditor, which means I hunt financial lies for a living. I notice what people hide. I see patterns they think are invisible. I'm good at catching people who think they're smarter than the system. I lived in a downtown penthouse with my wife, Liana, who worked as chief operating officer at Meridian Capital, a mid-sized investment firm. Everyone loved her. She was charming, ambitious, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and convince you to trust her with your money. Which is exactly what thousands of clients did. We'd been married for 7 years. It was a good life. Quiet. Predictable. I thought I knew who she was. Then one afternoon, I found a medical bill on our shared credit card statement. An urgent care clinic. A test for sexually transmitted infections. Dated 3 days after I'd been out of the country for work. That single-line item changed everything. Let me take you back to when things were different. Liana and I met at a financial conference. I was presenting on audit trails. She was leading a panel on investment strategy. She was brilliant, sharp, funny, ambitious in a way that didn't feel calculating. We dated for 2 years before getting married. Our first apartment was tiny, filled with takeout boxes and late-night conversations about building something together. I remember her on our wedding day, crying as she walked down the aisle. She held my hand during the vows like she was drowning and I was the only lifeboat. I believed her. I loved her completely. Over the years, I'd handle the big financial decisions. Mortgages, retirement accounts, insurance. She handled the social calendar, the dinners, the public image. It was a partnership, or so I thought. I made decent money as an auditor. She made exceptional money at Meridian. We combined our salaries, shared everything, built a life. But around year 5, something shifted. She started staying late at the office. Not just late, until midnight, 1 a.m., sometimes sleeping at a hotel near Meridian's headquarters. She'd say she was closing a major deal, managing a difficult client, handling some crisis. I never questioned it. I trusted her. Her phone was always in her hand. Notifications pinging constantly. When I'd ask who was texting, she'd laugh and say, "Just work drama." But she'd angle the screen away from me. She bought new lingerie, expensive, lacy, nothing I'd ever seen before. When I asked about it, she said, "A woman has to feel sexy for herself, not just for her husband." The comment stung. I'd never made her feel unseen. At least, I didn't think I had. She'd mention my brother, Kyle, more often. "Kyle texted me about that restaurant you love. Kyle thinks we should invest in crypto. Kyle is so funny, he always knows how to make me laugh when I'm stressed. Kyle is 5 years younger than me. A personal trainer. Charming in that effortless way. We'd never been particularly close. He lived on the other side of the city, came to holidays, texted occasionally. I remember one Christmas, watching them laugh together in the kitchen while I was in the living room. I felt something twist in my chest. But I dismissed it. Paranoia. Insecurity. Kyle was family. Liana loved me. I was so wrong. It's a Thursday afternoon. I'm sitting at my office, reviewing a client's expense reports when I get the notification. A new charge on our shared credit card. Urgent care clinic, $287. I click through to the details. The date is circled in my mind instantly. 3 days ago. I was in Frankfurt, Germany, presenting at an international audit conference. I'd been gone for 5 days. My first thought was concern. Was she sick? Should I call her? Then I saw what the charge was for, STI screening panel. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds. My hands went cold. The office around me felt suddenly very far away. I didn't call her. Instead, I did what I do best. I pulled the thread. I checked our shared bank statements going back 6 months. There were patterns I'd missed before, or maybe I hadn't wanted to see them. Thursday evenings, charges at a boutique hotel downtown. $340, always. A room rate. Breakfast charges at the hotel restaurant. Sometimes 2 meals. Then I cross-referenced with our credit card statement for places near Meridian Capital. Dinners at restaurants within walking distance of her office. Always charged during hours she'd told me she was in meetings. Always expensive wine. My stomach was churning, but my mind was sharp. I was in audit mode now. Emotions locked away. Just data. I checked my phone's location history from the past 8 months. Pulled it up on my laptop. Mapped it against her Instagram check-ins. Every Thursday night when she said she was working late, her location pinged from a hotel. Every time I was out of the city, the pattern intensified. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I called Kyle. Hey man. Quick question. You been in the city much lately? He paused. Too long. Yeah. Why? Just wondering. Haven't seen you at the apartment in a while. Liana mentioned you've been texting her. Another pause. I've been busy. New client base. Why are you asking? I didn't answer. I just hung up. That night, I sat in my home office with the lights off, staring at the medical bill on my screen. The STI screening. The hotel charges. The restaurant bills. The pattern was undeniable. And I knew exactly who the other person was. My wife was sleeping with my brother. And they were using my money to do it. I could have driven to Meridian Capital that night. Could have confronted her at her desk. Could have called Kyle and screamed at him over the phone. I could have done what most people do, exploded. Instead, I closed the laptop and sat in absolute silence for 2 hours. I thought about her wedding vows. Her tears on our wedding day. The way she used to fall asleep on my chest. All of it was a performance. A very good one. 7 years of a performance. But underneath the pain was something else. Clarity. And calculation. You don't become a forensic auditor without learning one crucial skill. How to think like someone who's hiding something. How to remain calm when everything around you is a lie. I knew if I confronted her now, she'd panic. She'd call Kyle. They'd coordinate a story. They'd destroy evidence. By tomorrow morning, the hotel might not have records of her stay. The charges could be disputed. Everything would be muddied. But if I waited, if I kept acting like I didn't know, I could document everything. I could prepare. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. I kissed her goodbye. I brought her coffee. I texted her during the day about dinner plans. And I started building a case against my wife. The financial trail. I requested our complete banking history from the past 2 years, something I had every right to do, as both our names were on the account. I sat with a highlighter and marked every suspicious charge. The boutique hotel, 47 visits over 8 months, averaging Thursday nights and occasional Fridays. The dinners, 63 charges at restaurants near Meridian Capital, always during hours she claimed to be in meetings. The lingerie stores, 12 purchases, totaling $2,400. The jewelry stores, 5 purchases. Jewelry I'd never seen her wear. I added it up, roughly $18,000 of our shared funds spent on her affair in 8 months. That night, watching her eat dinner across from me, smiling and talking about her day, I felt something snap inside. Not rage. Disconnection. Like I was watching an actress perform for an audience I was no longer part of. The discovery. 2 weeks into my investigation, I was reviewing some business files Liana had left on our shared home computer. Part of my routine due diligence, we always reviewed each other's work, shared documents, stayed transparent. Except I found something she didn't know I found. A folder buried in her downloads, personal. Inside it were photos. Hundreds of them. Her and Kyle. In hotel rooms. At restaurants. In cars. In moments I recognized. Moments when I thought she was in late meetings or networking events. But what chilled me most were the messages I found in a notes app she'd left open. Drafts of emails she never sent. I need to leave him. This is unsustainable. I can't keep living like this. How much do you think he'll fight me on the divorce? I'm worried about losing the penthouse. I need to make sure I get my portion of the Meridian accounts. Talk to your brother about whether I should claim he manipulated the financials. We could blame it on him, say he embezzled. My hands went numb reading that last one. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to destroy me. The setup. About 3 weeks in, I noticed something odd in the Meridian Capital files on our shared computer. A series of transfers from client accounts to an external account. The amounts were small, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, but they were flagged as suspicious in Meridian's internal audit. Liana had been mentioning stress at work, client audits, potential fraud in the accounting department. She'd been anxious, distracted. I pulled up her work emails, which she'd accidentally left logged in on the home computer. There were threads about these missing funds. Internal investigation. Questions about who had access. Then I found an email she drafted but not sent, addressed to Meridian's CEO. I've discovered evidence that Rowan Hale, my husband, has been embezzling client funds through his position as external auditor. I'm prepared to provide documentation. They weren't just going to leave me. They were going to frame me for the very crime they were committing. The final deception. The night before the big reveal, Liana came home with a bottle of expensive wine and takeout from my favorite restaurant. She was wearing lingerie under her dress. She wanted to have sex, to be intimate in a way we hadn't been in months. I let it happen. My body went through the motions while my mind was elsewhere, cataloging everything. The way she touched me. The way she whispered that she loved me. All of it lies. After, as she slept, I downloaded everything onto an encrypted drive, bank statements, photographs, emails, messages. I called my attorney and set up a meeting for the next morning. I also did something that I knew was risky. I called Meridian Capital's legal department and reported the suspicious transfers. I provided documentation, real documentation, showing that the missing funds had been accessed by accounts connected to Kyle, who had obtained temporary access to the system through Liana. I said nothing to Liana. The next day, I sat in my attorney's office with everything laid out. We have a clear case for divorce, my lawyer said, reviewing the photographs and bank statements. Infidelity, financial misconduct, and evidence of fraud. You could take her for half of everything, and the courts would likely award you more given the circumstances. There's more, I said quietly. I showed him the drafted email accusing me of embezzlement, the notes about framing me, the evidence that she and Kyle had been accessing Meridian's accounts. His expression darkened. This is serious. This is criminal. Have you contacted anyone at Meridian? This morning, I replied. Their legal team is investigating. I made a decision in that moment. I would not give her the satisfaction of a clean divorce. I would not let her walk away with her reputation intact, with half the assets, with the ability to spin this as irreconcilable differences. She'd tried to destroy me. Now I would return the favor, using the only weapon she'd given me, the truth. My attorney nodded slowly. You understand this goes to a whole different level now. Criminal investigation. She'll likely face charges. Your brother too. I know, I said. Let's proceed. That evening, Liana came home from work looking stressed. She'd received a call from Meridian's legal team. They were freezing her accounts pending the investigation into the missing funds. She didn't know that I'd tipped them off. She didn't know that forensic accountants were already combing through the system. She didn't know that Kyle had been contacted and was panicking. She sat on the couch, and I sat across from her. We need to talk, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Yes, I agreed. We do. Rowan, something's happening at work. There's an investigation. I think it might be Kyle's doing. I think he might have. Stop, I interrupted quietly. Don't lie to me anymore. She froze. I pulled out the encrypted drive and connected it to the television. Her photographs appeared on the screen. Her and Kyle. Over and over. Every hotel room, every restaurant, every moment of deception. Her face went white. You've been embezzling from Meridian Capital, I continued, my voice steady and calm. You've been using our joint accounts to finance your affair with my brother. And you drafted an email to your CEO accusing me of the crimes you committed. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. I've already contacted law enforcement and Meridian's legal team. They have all of this. The photographs. The bank records. The emails. The evidence of your attempted fraud. Liana's hands started shaking. Rowan, I can explain. You can explain to a judge, I said coldly. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a second item, a recording device. I'd recorded this entire conversation, as I was legally permitted to do in our home. This conversation is now part of the legal record, I said. Everything you say from this point forward will be documented. Then I stood up and looked her directly in the eyes. Congratulations, Liana. You got what you wanted. Freedom. A new life. But not in the way you planned. You're facing embezzlement charges, fraud charges, and civil liability for the funds you stole. Kyle's facing the same. Your career at Meridian is over. Your reputation is destroyed. And in about 6 months, you'll be lucky if you're not spending time in a federal prison. I walked to the door and picked up a suitcase I'd packed the night before. I'm leaving, I said. Don't contact me. My attorney will be in touch regarding the separation. Everything is documented, everything is filed, and everything is in the hands of law enforcement now. She sat frozen on the couch, understanding finally dawning. She'd lost. Not just me. Everything. I whispered one last thing as I reached the door. Congrats. Within 48 hours, the Meridian Capital investigation became public. The company released a statement about internal financial irregularities and confirmed that they'd notified law enforcement. Within a week, both Liana and Kyle were contacted by federal agents. They were advised of their rights. They retained criminal defense attorneys. Liana tried to call me 17 times. I didn't answer once. The media picked up the story. High-level executive accused of embezzlement. Personal affair allegedly exposed financial crime. Her friends, her colleagues, everyone she'd tried so hard to impress, they all knew now. Not because of a scandal, but because of a crime. Kyle disappeared for a while. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state and was working odd jobs. The apartment, the one we'd built together, was seized as part of the asset freeze pending the investigation. I felt nothing. Or rather, I felt everything, but it was distant. Like watching it happen to someone else. Liana faced charges for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. 6 months later, she pleaded guilty to reduced charges and received a 3-year sentence, with a possibility of parole after 18 months. Kyle received 4 years. Neither of them saw it coming because they'd underestimated the person they were lying to. They'd forgotten that I speak the language of evidence. And evidence, unlike promises, never lies. A year and a half later, I'm sitting in an office in Singapore. I took a job with an international audit firm, a position that pays better and keeps me far away from the wreckage of my former life. The penthouse is gone. The marriage is dissolved. The savings we accumulated together have been split according to legal proceedings, with my portion reinstated after the fraud investigation concluded. I live in a modest apartment now. 1 bedroom, a view of the harbor, quiet mornings. I've started therapy. I've stopped looking at my phone waiting for messages that will never come. I've stopped replaying moments, looking for signs I missed. The therapist told me something that helped. You didn't miss the signs. You chose to trust. That's not weakness. That's what love requires. The tragedy isn't that you trusted, it's that she weaponized it. Last month, I received notification that Liana had been released after serving 18 months with good behavior. I have no idea where she is now. I don't care. The final image I hold is not of her in that apartment, surrounded by evidence of her betrayal. It's of me, walking through Changi Airport, passport in hand, the life I'd built with her officially behind me. I board the plane alone. But I'm not empty. I'm free. If you made it this far, you know this story isn't just content, it's a mirror. If you felt even a little anger, heartbreak, or recognition while Rowan was being betrayed, don't just click away and pretend it didn't hit you. Subscribe so you're not just a silent watcher of other people's pain. Join this community, comment, and stand with the ones who finally choose themselves instead of the people who lied to them.